It's day 3 and I still confuse the stages. I'm so sorry, guys. And also I was looking for a beer because that would have been perfect for this next panel, right? Because beer is a good example of biomanufacturing. Is this the right panel? Do you have beer? Okay, I'm getting some. Because fermentation is one of the biggest trends in alternative, more sustainable food production, and we now have ways to fine-tune this process and use it for all kinds of cool products coming out of the agri-food tech ecosystem. I'm so excited about this. That's what our next session is all about. And we have a great group of experts to share their insights with you. I will just run through very quickly who's on stage. It's Marie Ammann, a senior innovation and startup manager with BayWa, investor Jill Horsky, founding manager partner of Flora Ventures, Christian Spier, co-founder and CEO of Differential Bio, and Roman Werner, managing director of Tomb Venture Lab, food agrobiotech, who will also be our moderator for this session. Let's hit it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Already working? Thank you.
Now it's working.
Is it my beard? No. Does it work? Hello, hello. No, sorry. That's somehow.
That works. Yeah.
Mike?
Does it? No? Now it works. Sorry, I adjusted. Because before, and we were talking about my beard really blocking away the mic, so we had a little bit to put it at the side. Yeah, welcome here. So it's so great to be back on the DLD stage. We started with agri-food topics, I think, roughly 2 years ago already, and had so much great input and impressions afterwards, so that we say we need to do this almost every year. And agri-food and all the topics are really, really on the plate of everybody. So it's one of the innovation areas, I think, that everybody has a need of, because everybody has to eat and to drink all day. And to be honest, agri-food is also something what is really, challenging at the moment. So the way how we produce food is of high efficiency, to be honest. And I believe this is also important because we got really able in the last years to feed a lot of people and really reducing also hunger on this planet. Not everything, of course, unfortunately, but we are still doing this or on a good way. But also how we do agriculture and produce food at the moment also comes along with a lot of problems. Everybody knows this, and I think we had also a lot of talks and good presentations in the last 2 days about this. So what to do and how can we improve that? And we have here on stage 3 great experts from our home turf here in Munich, although Gil has 2 home turfs, to be honest, but he will explain this, that are talking about climate, calories, and coding. To be honest, we can do this presentation, I think this talk, for hours. We only have 25 minutes, something like that, so we have to keep on pushing. But of course, I would also like to invite everybody of you also to join us to check out what we are doing, because there's so many great things to experience. So, but now let's jump in. So we start first of all with the calorie expert. That's our dear friend Gil Horsky. Gil, what are you doing, and especially what makes you a calorie expert?
Being a calorie expert sounds a bit challenging. But hi, everybody. I'm Gil Horsky. I've done my career in the food industry, worked for many years in Pepsi and Mondeliz, led their corporate venture arm, and then a few years ago set up my own fund that invests into food and agriculture. And one of the areas that I'm very interested in, that I'm believing is disruptive, is connected to calories. We've all been hearing in the last few years about the revolution of GLP-1 in Ozempic and the pharmaceutical weight loss phenomena that is going around the world. I mean, for even a short while, Novo Nordisk was the biggest public company in Europe, given their really blockbuster products. But what's really interesting about the weight management topic that people don't talk a lot about is that actually, first of all, we all know weight is a byproduct of nutrition and food mainly. But second, today the pharmaceutical industry is really finding a solution to help people lose weight. But the problem is once you go off these Ozempic medications, you actually gain it back very quickly. It's called kind of the GLP hangover effect or boomerang effect. And that's a huge opportunity for the food industry today to address that. There are some companies starting to do that. Of course, the best way to address it is just to eat healthy food. But unfortunately, it seems like we all as human beings are being challenged, having a hard time doing that. But there's really a big opportunity for the food industry in the axis of food and pharma. And it's a space that is very interesting. We heard an article, kind of a lecture earlier about biotech. And a lot of us are talking about this space as food as medicine, which is a really a very exciting space that I'm personally very interested in.
Yeah, we already got at the beginning. So biotech is one of the key areas that we need in order to solve a lot of problems in the food industry. And also thanks for the little, how to say, introduction concerning beer, because that's also my home turf, to be honest. But biotech is something that humanity is using since ages, since thousands, hundreds of years already.
And I think I'll just add one more sentence about it. You know, it's interesting when you hear people in the pharmaceutical or medicine industry, etc., medical healthcare, you know, the whole healthcare system globally has been built around curing people, right? We become sick and we find out what's the problem, and then hopefully, you know, pharmaceutical solution, medical devices are going to cure us. But what's interesting, if you go today and you become a doctor, and I don't know if there are any doctors here in the audience, most doctors around the world have one course in their entire medical education about food and nutrition. Now, the flip side of it, that when you look at the #1 cause of death and disease, it's always scientifically proven connected to food and nutrition. So actually, there is a big gap there, and food and nutrition is probably the industry that can have the biggest impact of prevention. So no need to get cured, we can actually prevent you from becoming sick. And that's a topic that I think only in the last few years people are starting to realize that more. And you also see investors and entrepreneurs shifting away from the pharma, healthcare industry and starting to understand that if they start playing in the prevention, that's actually in the space of nutrition and food.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the human well-being, health of everybody of us is one core aspect when we talk about concepts like One Health or then the planetary health diet and so on. And this brings us to the question of how we can do that with climate. And Marie, we are both already working since years together, very, very successful, makes a lot of fun. And we are already always tackling a lot of topics about climate. So can you give us some insights what you're doing, especially now in your current job, and what a big role plays climate in agri-food?
Yeah, thank you, Roman. Welcome also from my side. Super happy to be here on that stage. My name is Marie. I've basically spent all my life in supporting startups and also innovation in and along the whole food value chain. I've worked for quite a while at DLD Food, supporting startups on a European scale, and also always bringing or being part of creating the platform that the right people speak to the right people, which is also here actually at DLD, so going out of, or like moving out of the boundaries, connecting creative minds with researchers, but also then with the industry and the investor, which is quite pivotal. And right now I'm working for BayWa, which is an agricultural company based here in Munich, which also has an investment vehicle. So on the one hand, I'm supporting innovation predominantly, to allow that we participate in the shift of agriculture, or I mean, we all, I think, are aware here in this room that agriculture also has to change, or at least the way how we pursue it right now. That there are a lot of externalities, and on the other hand, investing in startups which allow us to make this move happen. And I think, if we look on agriculture here on a European scale, I just want to drop some numbers because they were quite remarkable for myself, but. The European average farmer is 57, and we only have 12% of farmers which are below 40. And these are two numbers which are tremendous when we talk about agriculture has to change because our nature, our climate is changing. And there are a lot of big challenges to solve, and on the other hand, you cannot solve these challenges with a one-size-fits-all solution. Particularly in Bavaria, our agriculture is super diverse. We have a lot of farmers who are basically are farming on a side business. So, the situation is quite complex, and I'm super curious also to explore the opportunities and also speak later on with the audience.
Yeah, so one core aspect, I think, in agri-food that I would like to add here as well, because Marie and me, we are driving this since a couple of years already, is that you have to have a regard on the whole value chain of food. You cannot have a look just in agriculture or just in food and see everything a little bit disconnected. It's about having a look at the whole value chain. So starting from, so how we call it at our university, at the TU Munich, from the roots really to the plate, to the fork of the people. And that's really, really important, because then we will learn about how healthy food can be in the future, and also tackle about the climate challenges.
Can I add one thought
Sure.
here? Roman, you also have to introduce you and
Yeah.
Tomato Labs in one stage, that's later on.
Yeah.
But particularly when it comes to everything what combines us here on the panel, yeah, supporting startups in the field of agriculture and food. Nothing against software startups, but founding a hardware or an autonomous robot for the field, or working on a novel food, you have to put so much more energy or capital, in terms of human capital, in terms of money, into the new product or technology before it even is ready to enter the market. And that's why, particularly in the area of agriculture and food, we have to be more behind in speeding up and bringing new technologies, products, services, whatever, onto the market. That's super important.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you mentioned already software. Now let's come to also the big trends, the big possibilities that we are currently, gaining in this very moment in our society. And one of them, we see this on the DLD in every corner, is artificial intelligence. And we have here Christian, who is one of our founders here, based in Munich, and Freising Weinstefan, where he is with his startup Differential Bio, connecting artificial intelligence to biotech to food. So Christian, now it's time to introduce yourself a little bit, and what are you doing with Differential Bio?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Roman, and it's a pleasure to be here on the DLD stage. I want to jump on Marie's last point, meaning we really have the challenge to accelerate timelines and reduce costs of agri-food production. And this is something that we are actively working on at Differential. So my personal background is in bioinformatics and technology management, and I've teamed up with an engineer and a microbiologist to basically bring technology into the agri-food world, more specifically into the world of microbial and bio-based production, where we combine robotic lab automation as opposed to manual lab experimentation with artificial intelligence to understand how biological systems, microbial systems behave. And with that, we can optimize revenue, cost, and quality of microbial products, and ultimately address both climate and carbon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to round up now this round with insights, what we are doing, especially at the TUM Venture Labs. So the TUM Venture Labs is a joint initiative by the Technical University of Munich and Unternehmertum, and we have 12 dedicated domain-specific labs. So especially when it comes to software, AI, robotics, built environment, aerospace, healthcare, chemistry. So we're covering all the important tech domains, especially in Munich, but also worldwide. And I'm responsible for food, agriculture, and biotech. And I roughly started this job 5.5 to 6 years ago. And yeah, there we were at the very beginning, incubating the first startups here in Munich, also motivating a lot more scientists to spin off and so on. And it's really crazy. After 6 years, I can tell you what is going on. We had 200 startups under our support, and currently we're actively supporting 110 startups. They are just active in agriculture, food, and biotech. And we could also see this in the numbers, to be honest. So some days ago, there was the new startup report from the Startup-Verband released, and there we could see a growth in food startups. So new incorporations from, in the comparison between 2024 and 2025, of an increase of 80%. We can see a lot of founders are on their way really to do something in agri-food, because it's not just about, doing a venture or a business, but it's really about these topics that we conclude now here. Climate, calories, so really bringing up new healthy types of food, and also using the the trends, the high-tech possibilities like artificial intelligence that we have here. But at the beginning, I already mentioned, we have a lot of challenges, but based on that, of course, also a lot of breakthroughs. And I would like to go now with you into detail what you see here. So maybe everybody of you can give two challenges on one hand that needs to be solved, maybe also two breakthroughs that are already existing or currently in development. Maybe Gil, we come to the calorie side.
Sure. I'll actually, to make it more interesting, I'll go away from calories. I spoke already enough about calories. I'm getting hungry from this topic. Yeah. One of the biggest issues we all have today around the world is labor shortages. Most of the industries are suffering tremendously from that, and actually also the entire food and agriculture ecosystem as well. And one of the areas specifically in agriculture is actually so manual in that sense. And I think what you're seeing, some very interesting companies, like we have a portfolio company of autonomous tractors, and the topic of how do you actually require, and going back to the point that the average European farmer is 57, and most of them actually also, when you check, they don't even have usually their kids do not want to go on into that business after that. So there's a huge shortage in that space. The same, by the way, if you look at the value chain of food manufacturing, if we go even up into the kind of restaurant business today, I mean, more autonomous, less waiters, less workers, not because the industry doesn't want to give work, there are actually no workers. And by the way, this is not a European issue, it's a global issue. So I think you're seeing now a lot of interesting ventures in the robotics, automation, that are basically trying to solve the labor shortages that we're having in the industry. So that's an area that I think is very interesting, and I think is just going to have, and we see more investment, more entrepreneurs. By the way, the entrepreneurs working, and this is an interesting point also to say, entrepreneurs working, the most interesting entrepreneurs and usually the most successful startups in the food and agriculture industry are usually people that didn't come from the industry, because they're actually bringing a know-how. If it's AI, it's biotech, it's robotics. Our autonomous tractor, I'm originally from Israel, it's actually people that were in the Israeli military managing the autonomous tanks and planes and drones, and they took that technology into agriculture and into tractors. So we're seeing a lot of industries that developed further, and entrepreneurs taking that know-how, that science, and applying it into the $8 trillion food and agriculture industry, which is one of the top 5 biggest industries in the world, and we also know it's the least digitized industry from all of them.
And do you have 2 examples for us? So from your investor view, 2 examples for really great breakthroughs where you say, okay, this will definitely influence the way we eat, how we do farming in the future.
So, it's interesting on the farming, I talked about labor, but, what's also interesting on the farming, I actually think what we're going to see, and we're seeing it now, is actually, and I say this also as a guy that came from the food industry, the food and agriculture industry in the last 100 years went all through globalization, this concept that we're sitting in Germany and you're getting whatever fruits and vegetables and different spices from places around the world. Actually, with all the geopolitics changes, etc., I actually think we're starting to see much more need and desire for localization. One, there is a big climate element for that. We all know that. Maybe it's not so hot and trendy these days to talk about climate, but it's still a big topic. Let's not forget about that. And the second piece is actually geopolitics and sovereignty of countries. Again, I come from Israel. It's a country that talked about defense. A lot of countries in Europe, everybody's talking about defense from a security perspective, but actually from a national security perspective, your ability to actually not be dependent on food and agriculture and being able to feed your own people locally is a huge topic. Most governments around the world today are talking about it. Great example is Singapore. Singapore made a program 10 years ago called 30 by 30. That means by 2030, they want 30% of their produce to be grown locally, and they're going to meet that target. So countries are... Clearly, my Siri doesn't understand what I'm saying.
Are you recording us?
But anyway, so I think we're going to see some more and more governments playing that role, and I think that's a space that is actually counterintuitive, but moving back to local growing food and agriculture in an efficient way, even in places which are very, very expensive. We'll need to find ways to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. So these challenges, the geopolitical ones that we're having, are, yeah, on one hand, really messing up the whole this whole area to an extent that we haven't seen, to be honest, some years ago. But in parallel, or on the other hand, we are really creating a lot of space for innovators here. No? And let's see what will follow up here in the future.
Yeah.
And maybe also to add on something else, so what is really important, on one hand, to have externals, what you mentioned, people with a lot of knowledge about artificial intelligence, about robotics, and to rightly combine this with people from farming that know about the problems and challenges but have not the ability to develop a robot, artificial intelligence tools, and so on and so on. I think this is really the key point here, and this is where we as TUM Venture Labs are working to how does it provide a neutral meeting point for such people to meet and really create the ventures, the innovations and solutions for tomorrow. Marie, so breakthrough and challenges, or maybe first of all the challenges and then the breakthroughs. What do you see?
Yeah, super happy to add here. So I think one personal note, agriculture is the basis of everything. Yeah, so everything starts in agriculture, and agriculture itself. It's a challenge, and on the other hand, there's like a huge opportunity. Yeah, we know that agriculture right now, like a lot of emissions come from agriculture. On the other hand, it also offers a lot of potential in contributing to the way how we, for example, transform soils or like the whole climate to the better. So I see two things which are definitely important and happening on a parallel. You mentioned it shortly. I think it's super relevant for all of us to think global, but buy and consume local. The regional aspect is increasing tremendous importance. And on the other hand, I see that there's a decoupling from nature. Yeah, so indoor solutions are increasing. Horizon Growers, for example, also from Munich, is a great example we've invested in. And also another example I want to give is we see that particularly ingredients, you mentioned it shortly as well, for example, like sugar, like cocoa, like coffee, where we, I think, have all seen that prices have increased, definitely, that there are alternatives, also biotech solutions. And I want to give you another example, Planet A Foods, also here from Munich, where actually also our colleagues from Burda are invested in, is producing an alternative to chocolate. They are in a lot of products already included. And one thing which is, I mentioned earlier that it's that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, particularly when we talk about agriculture and the technology applied in agriculture or the technology applied in the whole food processing. These are machinery which are like not cheap, so you invest one time in them, and basically what we need is plug and play, like either plug and play ingredients or plug and play technologies to add into the existing technology. So either like to put a new sensor onto the tractor or to apply a new sensor into the food processing machinery. This is something which has to be incorporated in the way how we design innovation and new technologies, because it's not that you from scratch buy something new because it's more sustainable. You also have to think about the amortization of the old machinery.
To add also on here, because I think this is something what is really getting a lot more popular, is climate-friendly agriculture, such as regenerative agriculture, something that we definitely have to focus in the future. It's especially about soil health, so the soil where we are living on, where we get our food from, no matter if it's animal-based or plant-based or whatever, everything is based on the soil. And we have to learn to treat that a lot more, or even a little bit better in the future, because to be honest, in the European Union, 2/3 of our soils are in a problematic situation, and to find also innovations for here. Christian, AI and food, AI and biotech, great terms, and I think this is definitely what you have to put on your agenda. We will see a lot more here in the future, because this is one of the key areas for us in the future. What are challenges for you, or maybe better, what are solutions, breakthroughs for you in this case? Of course, your startup, but what do you have else in common?
Of course. So as entrepreneurs and as a technology startup, of course, we're optimistic about the space. Yeah. And AI's impact on the agri-food industry goes throughout the entire supply chain, from agricultural crop design to demand forecasting to logistics and manufacturing optimization. It's across the board. Just to highlight two very important shifts in the market is, on the one side, the automation of knowledge work. I'm sure that most of us in this room at least have used ChatGPT or similar to write emails or review a contract, but the same like automation of knowledge work is going into the agri-food space, where this can be applied to for R&D teams, for instance, to go through literature, design and test like their hypotheses. But on the other hand, also file complex regulatory dossiers, such as novel food applications. But the much bigger trend, next to the automation of knowledge work, is the big shift of AI from the digital to the physical world, and especially the biological world, impacting all of us here. So what's important to say is that, AI, or large language models, they speak English, and biology doesn't understand English. Biology speaks DNAs, proteins, and cells. And that is something where we're seeing a lot more activity to, for instance, design the next generation of crops that are drought-resistant, that fix carbon and nitrogen, for instance. And that is what we focus on at Differential Bio, model and optimize how biological systems and cells behave under different conditions, and really make bio-based manufacturing a cost-competitive discipline. Again, by generating real-world data, by modeling through artificial intelligence systems, and ultimately improving to cater to all those needs, whether it's local constraints such as regional feedstock supply or consumer demands, is something that's very much needed, that AI is here to help with, and we as well.
Yeah, that's a bold statement. Thank you very much. So, to be honest, I could extend this discussion with you for hours, days, weeks. Unfortunately, I see this time it's already running a little bit of red, and unfortunately, we have to maybe skip this to later. Even to the audience, I would like to give a little bit to wrap up. So you see, there are not only challenges, although they are very, very big challenges in agri-food, or how we produce food nowadays, but there are a lot of innovations. There are a lot of possibilities that we, let's say, simply have to apply. And I would like to invite all of you to especially have a special focus for you on this field in the future. So if you have any questions or would like to know about this one, we are here. Munich is here ready, especially with the two venture labs, Unternehmertum, and the Technical University of Munich, to meet all these demands. So thanks to you that you joined me here on the DLD stage this year, and thanks to the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.